Chapter 2 of the Complete Works of Artemus Ward, Part 2, War, by Charles Farrar Browne. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2 Thrilling Scenes in Dixie. I had a narrer escape from the sunny South. The swings and errors of outrageous fortune alluded to by Hamlick warn't nothin' in comparison to my troubles. I come pesky near swearin' some profane oaths more'n onct, but I hope I didn't do it, for I promised she whose name shall be nameless, except that her initials is Betsy J., that I'll join the meetin' house at Bladensville jest as soon as I can scrape money enough together so I can afford to be pious in good style like my wealthy neighbors. But if I'm confisticated again, I'm afraid I shall continner on my present benighted state for some time. I figured conspicuously in many thrillin' scenes in my tower from Montgomery to my humstead, and on several occasions I thought the great comic paper wouldn't be enriched no more with my lubrications. Arter biddin' adieu to Jefferson D., I started for the depot. I saw a nigger sittin' on a fence a playin' on a banjo. "My African brother," said I, quotin' from a track I once read, "you belong to a very interestin' race. Your masters is goin' to war excloosively on your account." "Yes, boss," he replied, "and I wish 'em honorable graves," and he went on playin' the banjo, larfin' all over and openin' his mouth wide enough to drive in a old fashioned two-wheeled chaise. The train of cars in which I was to trust my valerable life was the scaliest, ricketiest lookin' lot of consarns that I ever saw on wheels afore. "What time does this string of second hand coffins leave?" I inquired of the depot master. He said directly, and I went in and sat down. I hadn't more'n fairly squatted afore a dark lookin' man with a swinister expression into his countenance entered the cars, and lookin' very sharp at me, he axed what was my principles. "Secesh," I answered. "I'm a dissoluter. I'm in favor of Jeff Davis, Beauregard, Pickens, Captain Kidd, Bluebeard, Monroe Edwards, the Devil, Mrs. Cunningham, and all the rest of 'em." "You're in favor of the war?" "Why, certainly. By all means. I'm in favor of this war and also of the next war. I've been in favor of the next war for over 16 years. "War to the knife," said the man. "Blood, ergo blood," said I, though them words isn't original with me. Them words was writ by Shakspeare, who is dead. His mantle fell onto the author of the Seven Sisters, who's going to have a spring overcoat made out of it. We got under way at larst, and proceeded on our journey at about the rate of speed which is generally observed by properly conducted funeral processions. A handsome young gal, with a red musketeer bar on the back of her head, and a sassy little black hat tipped over her forrid, sot in the seat with me. She wore a little Secesh flag pinned onto her hat, and she was a-goin' for to see her true love, who had jined the Southern Army, all so bold and gay. So she told me. She was chilly, and I offered her my blanket. "Father livin'?" I axed. "Yes, sir." "Got any uncles?" "A heap. Uncle Thomas is dead, though." "Well, peace to Uncle Thomas's ashes, and success to him. I will be your Uncle Thomas. Lean on me, my pretty Secesher, and linger in blissful repose." She slept as securely as in her own housin', and didn't disturb the solemn stillness of the night with airy snore. At the first station a troop of sojers entered the cars, and inquired if old Waxworks was on board. Well, this was the disrespective style in which they referred to me. "Because if old Waxworks is on board," says a man with a face like a double breasted lobster, "we're going to hang old Waxworks." "My illustrious and patriotic bummers," says I, a-gettin' up and takin' orf my chapeau, "if you allude to A. Ward, it's my pleasin' duty to inform you that he's dead. He saw the error of his ways at 15 minutes past 2 yesterday, and stabbed himself with a stuffed sled stake, dyin' in 5 beautiful tabloos to slow moosic. His last words was, 'My perfessional career is over. I jerk no more.'" "And who be you?" "I'm a student in Senator Benjamin's law office. I'm going up north to steal some spoons and things for the Southern Army. Well, this was satisfactory, and the intossicated troopers went orf. At the next station the pretty little Secesher awoke and said she must get out there. I bid her a kind adoo and give her some provisions. "Accept my blessin' and this hunk of gingerbread," I said. She thanked me muchly and tripped gaily away. There's considerable human nater in a man, and I'm afraid I shall allers give aid and comfort to the enemy if he comes to me in the shape of a nice young gal. At the next station I didn't get orf so easy. I was dragged out of the cars and rolled in the mud for several minutes for the purpose of taking the conceit out of me, as a Secesher kindly stated. I was let up finally, when a powerful large Secesher came up and embraced me, and to show that he had no hard feelins agin me, put his nose into my mouth. I returned the compliment by placing my stomach suddenly agin his right foot, when he kindly made a spittoon of his able-bodied face. Actuated by a desire to see whether the Secessioner had been vaccinated, I then fastened my teeth onto his left coat sleeve and tore it to the shoulder. We then violently bunted our heads together for a few minutes, danced around a little, and sat down in a mud puddle. We riz to our feet agin, and by a sudden and adroit movement I placed my left eye agin the Secesher's fist. We then rushed into each other's arms and fell under a 2-hoss wagon. I was very much exhausted, and didn't care about getting up agin, but the man said he reckoned I'd better, and I concluded I would. He pulled me up, but I hadn't been on my feet more'n 2 seconds afore the ground flew up and hit me in the head. The crowd said it was high old sport, but I couldn't exactly see where the laughter came in. I riz and we embraced agin. We careered madly to a steep bank, where I got the upper hands of my antagonist and threw him into the ravine. He fell about 40 feet, striking a grindstone pretty hard. I understand he was injured. I haven't heard from the grindstone. A man in a cocked hat come up and said he felt as though a apology was due me. There was a mistake. The crowd had taken me for another man. I told him not to mention it, and axed him if his wife and little ones was so as to be about, and got on board the train, which had stopped at that station 20 minutes for refreshments. I got all I wanted. It was the heartiest meal I ever et. I was rid on a rail the next day, a bunch of blazin' firecrackers being tied to my coat tails. It was a fine spectacle in a dramatic pint of view, but I didn't enjoy it. I had other adventures of a startlin' kind, but why continner? Why lacerate the public bosom with these here things? Sufficit to say I got across Mason and Dixie's line safe at last. I made tracks for my humstead, but she to whom I'm harnessed for life failed to recognize in the emaciated bein who stood before her the gushin' youth of 46 summers who had left her only a few months before. But I went into the pantry and brought out a certain black bottle. Raising it to my lips, I said, "Here's to you, old gal." I did it so natural that she knowed me at once. "Those form, them voice, that natural style of doin' things, 'tis he," she cried, and rushed into my arms. I was too much for her, and she fell into a swoon. I come very near swoundin' myself. No more to day from yours for the perpetuation of the Union and the bringin' of the Goddess of Liberty out of her present bad fix.
End of chapter 2.